This is my drums recording for Am I Wrong? These are all the recordings I have. Um, Starting with the kick, there are two kick drum mics. We've got a kick mic and then a sub as well. I've treated them in a similar way, but the kick drum mic has got just sort of a clean up EQ, just sort of reducing the super low frequencies and the highs, and then kind of reducing some of the mids and giving it a bit of the boost in the bass and then the high sort of frequency resonance as well to give some attack as well. I think it's quite a good EQ setup, just sort of cleaning it up and removing some of that excess sort of frequency and noise and things. Then I got compressor as well, just sort of a standard rock kick, reasonable compression, just to tighten up the track and increase the volume a bit and give it a bit more presence. And then I've got a noise gate just to sort of clean it up. The noise gate is just sort of the same on all the track, no, it's not the same, but it's got the same reasoning. It's just to clean up the track and just tidy it up a bit. Also, I did a Fat FX with an enhancer, so it's just sort of a bass enhancer, just increasing some of the bass. It's just sort of giving the low levels a bit of a boost. And then I've also added a sub bass, just to warm up the kick and give the kick a bit more low end to it. On the sub, it's treated in a similar way. It's just the EQ is just slightly different, removing the super highs and lows and a bit of the mids, but just having a bit more of a boost in the low end area is sort of the main thing. And then I've got also just a booster as well, just to boost more of the bass for the sub. Then I've also got a sub bass as well on there. So they're treated in a similar way, so they can sound sort of similar and work together, to create a whole overall kick drum sound. I was sort of, considering both of these drums when doing when working on the kick. And then moving on to the snare, I've got three different snare drum mics, two on the top and then one on the bottom. The first on the top, we've got there's an EQ compressor, noise gate, Fat FX, and then an expander, which is with the EQ. I've just got I've got refresh, and just sort of giving a bit of a boost in the low end to have some fatness, and then having a higher, crisper boost here just to get a bit more attack and a bit more high end. Then compressor is just sort of tightening it up and giving it a fair bit of compression just to keep it together and give the snare a boost. And then I've also got a booster on here. It boosts some of the bass, so it will make this mic a little bit more bassy, a bit low and heavy. But I think it works because I don't have it. I have it turned off here because I thought it was too much. So just having it on this top snare, I think works fine. And then I have it on the bottom here as well, booster. But because this is the bottom is just sort of, it gives it a bit more bass as well, but it doesn't add too much because of the bottom mic's not naturally not that bass heavy, but I think it sounds good. And the top has been EQ'd. I did have an expander on, but I thought that I've got okay, no, I thought that the expander just didn't really add anything to the track, and so I thought actually I didn't really need it. I thought the snare sounded fine without the expander, so I decided to not have it. But that's sort of the overall snare sound. Basses, they've been treated in the same way, same EQ, compressor, and noise gate. Just sort of to have the basis similar, and then sort of I've added sort of a few different effects. Some have fat effects and things, and just to try and make each mic set work together with each other, but also sound good on its own. Now moving on to the hi hat, we had a under mic hi hat here, which is I've panned it slightly left because from a drummer perspective, obviously the hi hat is to your left, so that's why it's panned towards the left. I've left it fairly natural with a hi hat just removing all the low end and then just boosting the higher frequencies with a slight dip, just so it's not sort of too harsh and bright. But I've still got compressor that's just sort of it's on drum mix just because actually it boosts the hi hat mic like somewhat, but not over the top boosting. So it's just sort of subtle boosting and just tightening up the track a bit. And then noise gate is just like I said before, just sort of cleaning up. And then I've also got an exciter. It's on a sizzle, just sort of it just kind of adds just sort of a bit of texture and a bit of character to the hi hats, which I think is good. And I quite liked it when I added it. Now with the toms, they've been treated in fairly similar ways. They're just slight EQs. This one's just sort of gotten a general boost across sort of the mid to low end, and then a slight dip in the highs there, just because it doesn't really need to be in the highs because all it needs is just a little boost around the mids. And then these two have the same EQ. They're both on a sort of floor tom, increasing the bass more, and then reducing the mids, and then letting a little bit of the highs through to have some sort of higher frequencies in there. I treated Tom 2 and Tom 3 in the same way because actually, when I recorded this, I didn't actually play Tom 3. I used the second tom as more of a floor tom, as you can see by the waveforms. So that's why I've sort of reduced more of the lower end on this second tom, so it's more like a floor tom. Because it was almost as big as the floor tom, but it wasn't a standard. The drum wasn't a standard size as sort of a mid tom. It was a more lower end tom. It just wasn't the lowest tom on the drum setup that I was using at the time. And I've also got on tom 1 and 2 a fat FX, just sort of that's just on Bitringer, just to give it gives the tom just a bit of ring to it, which just sort of adds a bit of character and texture to the toms. And then this second tom, just on accentuate, it just sort of adds a bit more of attack to the drum, and just allows the drum to have just a bit more clarity, which I think is good. And then moving on to the overheads, they're panned left and right, and they're left pretty natural. They've both just got sort of a increase here in the higher ends, and then they got a compressor as well, just sort of some light compression just to tighten up the track a bit. And then I've added the noise gate's doing the same, and then I've added an exciter, which is also set to a sort of a sizzle as well. It just sort of allows because the overhead mics are mainly sort of cymbal based, that's where most of the sound is sort of coming from. It just adds a bit of texture and a bit of sort of tonal qualities to the cymbals, and it's sort of having it both on the overheads and the hi hats. It sort of just connects the two together to really make the whole drum sound sort of stick together, and the cymbals really connect up from mic to mic. And then I've also got the two room mics with an EQ just sort of boosting the highs here, and then a compressor just sort of tightening up the tracks, and keeping it together and sort of boosting the overall track. I also added an expander just to really crisp up the highs of the cymbals and allow the cymbals to sort of really shine and stand out. Was sort of what I was going for with that. And then I've got a this mic was actually recorded from inside a cupboard in the room, and I've got it on hi-fi drums. What it does, it just sort of boosts a lot of the bass and reduces sort of the mids, and then increases some of the highs just to allow some of the cymbals to have a boost. Well, what this does is it allows the being a cupboard. It's really allows sort of it's sort of like an enclosed sound. When you listen to it, the snare has a real crack to it, which I think is nice. And having this mic in here, actually, it sounds quite good. I also put an expander on it because you can hear the snare quite well in that track. I just added some punch to really give the snare some fatness and some room from that recording, because I think it sounds good and sort of what needs, and that can also relate to get a bit of the kick in there and fatten up the kick on this track as well, which is good. And that's what I've done with the drums.